John, thanks so much for making your way to Boston, on your way back to Dublin. Thanks for making the time to visit us today.
My pleasure.
So the topic today, unattended retail, it's this big. Today, it used to be kind of this big, which is, the salty snacks, the sodas, the things that you visited kind of when you were desperate to buy a candy bar at the hospital while you were waiting to visit someone, or walking by on your way to the restroom at a restaurant. It's now a very big space. What's driving the shift, and how do you define it?
Yeah, and the shift is really driven by consumer demand. Consumers are looking for a more frictionless payment experience, a more frictionless shopping experience. And what we see is that the unattended tools can be used to provide that type of solution into the consumer market.
And when you think of unattended retail, so there are what we would call the vending machines, which now have a different label. I think you call them intelligent cabinets. And then the smaller format stores that are unattended, but in a very different sense. It's a store that just doesn't have cashiers, where the experience is walk in, authenticate via an app, pick up some stuff, walk out, not having to pay through any traditional checkout lane.
Yes, and we're seeing that there's multiple different flavors of unattended. So you've identified the two main ones would be the Amazon Go type experience, where you literally walk in, pick the goods off the shelf and walk out. And the other one would be what we call the intelligent cabinet, where there is goods behind within an actual cabinet, and you have to register either using your card or some other token to be able to access the cabinet. And both of those technologies are suited to different types of retail. At the moment, the jury is still out on which one's going to win out, but I think the market's big enough that there will be opportunities for both of them to succeed.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think no winners, just different use cases.
Exactly, yeah.
Where are you seeing traction? Like what type of retailer is embracing this concept, and what are some of the more unusual use cases that you've encountered?
We start off with marijuana.
Well, why not? Why not? Why not start there?
The really interesting thing is it's practically every retailer that you can think of is looking at this as a solution.
But on that one in particular, there has to be a whole lot more than payment that goes into it. Age verification and all of that. So how are you accommodating that complexity?
There isn't one provider that can meet all of these requirements. So it's a question of forming partnerships with
and integrations,
and integration. So the integration bottleneck, as we always call it, is one of the larger lead times to getting solutions deployed. But it's finding in particular sectors who are the appropriate partners to work with in that sector to meet the particular requirements of that.
How are you seeing business models evolve to support these new use cases? I mean, that seems to be something that is an interesting conundrum to work out.
And this really is, yeah. And at the moment, there are so many different flavors that different people are trying out different models and seeing what works best in their environment. And it really depends on the type of goods you're selling, the value of the goods you're selling, the frequency of which the goods are sold. We're certainly seeing, we started off, for example, of a kiosk selling Coke machines. Now we're seeing kiosks selling $200 and $300 speakers and earphone systems. That champagne. So anything you can think of. I mean, there is a opportunity to expand your business model by picking the appropriate unattended solution for your goods.
Yeah, and the kiosks themselves, the cabinets are beautiful in some cases. I mean, they look like store windows. And it makes for
that's really, I mean, there's one particular partner we work with, Vicky, and if you look at their units, they're actually designed so that you look at them from behind. They're as beautiful as when you look at them from the front.
Interesting, yeah.
Because you think of a kiosk, nobody ever thought of it, because they were originally designed to be pushed in the corner,
against a corner,
and pushed. Whereas now, actually, they're front and center. You can have these things standing in the middle of the store, and they're just as good to look at from any angle. So that whole design element has really increased. And I mean, if you looked at the whole unattended sector for the last number of years, very low innovation, very low investment in it. And it's because retailers thought, well, can unattended technology solve my problem of giving frictionless experience? That over the last number of years, we've seen a massive investment in. And it's not just the technology, it's the design.
It's the whole thing.
The entire package.
A lot of innovators are now getting into the space. I mean, it never used to be. It used to be family businesses and coins and cash. And and the more traditional, which is still certainly a part of the experience. But a lot of innovators are in the space either from a particular use case perspective around unattended retail, or trying to reinvent the experience holistically. Are you seeing that as well?
Definitely. And I mean, traditionally, the whole kiosk manufacturing was a light engineering type sector. So they'll tell you themselves it was bending metal.
Bending metal, right.
And it tended to be a lot of family business in there. But the downside of that was low innovation, was low investment. But really, in the last couple of years, we've seen a massive increase in entrepreneurs coming into the space and looking to upscale that technology to solve the challenges in the unattended sector.
Have you seen examples where it hasn't worked? And if so, why hasn't it?
I haven't.
All right, well, that's honest. Because they're all using you?
I've out of all the various different types of technologies, I can see some that I don't think will work as well as others. So they're probably we can list off a dozen different names of like scan and go systems and in-trolley scanning systems, and some of them you say, intelligent kiosks, that makes a lot of sense. The Amazon Goes, that's not going away.
Yeah.
There are some other flavors in between that you'd sort of think.
Yeah, too clunky.
Yeah,
too clunky. Yeah. I mean, the frictionless has to be more than just how you pay for something. It has to be the entire journey.
Exactly.
And I remember in the very early days, walking into a grocery store and being presented with a gun that you scan things. Like that was awful.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of that is still exists, it just requires a different type of commitment.
Yeah.
For the grocery
that
shopping
just came to my grocery store in Dublin, so we must be a bit behind the time.
Very behind the times. We've had it here in Boston forever. I think we had it. It's now gone. It's now gone to Dublin. Now we know. Now we know. Maybe you'll like it more than we did. Where do you see this in 5 years?
Yeah, and I mean, I love predicting the future because it's so easy to get it right. So,
well, you can predict the future after you've seen it happen, right?
Of all the different flavors of unattended retail, some winners will appear.
Right.
So some winners will appear for particular segments.
Right.
So in 5 years' time, we'll be able to say, Amazon Go type solutions, they're appropriate for these merchant sectors. Intelligent cabinets are appropriate for these. Scan and go solutions are appropriate for these other segments. But practically every retailer in 5 years' time will have an unattended section.
Interesting.
Some of it will be within the store itself, that rather than having to go to the cashier, the top 10 brands are over in an unattended section. Some of it will be they're pushing the brand out closer to where the consumers are. But I would expect that practically every retailer will have an unattended arm. But we won't be talking of it as unattended anymore.
Sure,
it'll just be retail.
It'll just be retail.
It's going to be absorbed into the mainstream. And I think the consumer preference is only going to increase. That if you don't have automated retail solutions, consumers are going to vote with their feet and go to the more frictionless solutions.
I'm looking forward to the day when we can just call it retail. We don't have to put things in front of retail in order to describe what we're doing. I mean, I think we're getting closer to that. But the consumer doesn't think of it that way. They think of it as their shopping experience, their purchasing experience, their retail experience, and what we're doing with all these different endpoints and connecting them really creates a better opportunity for consumers to transact in the moment, the way they actually want to engage with the brand.
Don't make me think. Just make it work. Sort it out in the background.
So how'd you get into payments? You're a PhD.